on this morning as they fly back into Hurricane Bonnie. Now, where is Bonnie going to go? That's still a question mark, and the exact track of Bonnie is certainly not etched in stone. One thing we're kind of concerned about is the fact that Bonnie continues to move west-northwest and is not really.
Well, coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to talk more about our national forecast and the chance for more heavy rainfall, not only in Texas, but also across the upper Midwest and also across parts of Florida as well. But right now, we're going to check on our tropical update and talk about Charley, Bonnie, and another strong disturbance southeast of Bonnie, which could cause some problems somewhere maybe along the southeastern coast within a matter of days. Let's show you what's going on right now. Our main concern is, of course, Tropical Storm Charley making landfall just about at this time, if not within the next hour or so. We do have tropical storm warnings out right now from Sabine Pass, Texas, down towards Brownsville, but the heaviest of the action right now is going to be right around, let's say, Bay City and southwestward from there. It looks like the heaviest of the rainfall will be bypassing Houston. Maybe the southern and western suburbs could be looking at some big-time rains there. San Antonio, you folks will be looking at some pretty good rains coming into the picture as well. Tropical Storm Charley, the 4 o'clock advisory, Central Daylight Time. The center of circulation, 27.8 degrees north, 96.8 degrees west, or just 25 miles east-southeast of Port Aransas, Texas. Top sustained winds bumped it up to 60 miles an hour, northwestward bound at 10 miles per hour. So we're talking about just a matter of an hour or two before making official landfall. And again, the pressure had dropped down to 1,003 millibars. Let's show you in the satellite picture what it looks like. This is Tropical Storm Charley. The deepest of the convection right now is basically moving onshore, which means we're looking at the worst of the weather as far as the heaviest of the rainfall making its way inland as well. Looking at the big view, we can show you what is happening as we take a look at Charley. Again, the heaviest of the rainfall has been moving across the Gulf of Mexico into the Texas coastline, the central Texas coastline, during the last several hours. Now, that's one vantage point. We can get you a closer one right now. And from San Antonio looking eastbound, you can see the heaviest of the weather. Victoria, Bay City, south of Houston right now, at least the south side of town, looking at some heavier downpours, and that's going to be the situation as once again we're going to be looking at a rapidly weakening system. No longer will it be a tropical storm, just a mere depression, and finally just a tropical low by later this afternoon. But with it, a lot of heavy rainfall heading across San Antonio and moving westbound from there along I-10. Where do we have the flood watches out at the present time? Basically the Louisiana coastline, but it looks like the worst of the weather right now as far as any flooding is going to be from around Houston south to around Corpus Christi, Bay City. Watch out for you folks. Same thing for around San Antonio, and for much of South Texas, bands of heavy rainfall will be in the picture through later on today. That's one story. That is Tropical Storm Charley. We've got Hurricane Bonnie to talk about and to worry about right now. It was bumped up to hurricane status as of 2 o'clock this morning, Eastern Daylight Time. The brand new advisory as of 5 o'clock this morning, Eastern Daylight Time, had Bonnie situated, center circulation, 22.1 degrees north, 69.4 degrees west, or about 120 miles to the east-northeast of the Turk Island. Again, top sustained winds, 75 miles per hour. Minimal hurricane, but again, we do have a hurricane once again, moving west-northwest at 17. This movement expected to really slow down as we look at the upcoming weekend. And again, we're looking at the pressure now at 987 millibars. And we do have warnings out right now for all of the Turks and Caicos Islands in southeastern and central Bahamas. We had just a hurricane watch for the central Bahamas just a few hours back, but as of 5 o'clock, they were bumped up again to hurricane warnings for the central Bahamas, as again, we're watching for our hurricane gradually strengthening and gaining and beginning to gain a little bit more strength again, moving off towards the west and northwest. On the satellite picture, you can clearly see that we do have a deepening hurricane, lots of deep convection. Now, the center of circulation still basically well to the south of this big blob of convection right in through here. So it's not a classic hurricane yet, and that's keeping it from really developing at this time any faster, is because we don't have that center of circulation right around the core of the deepest convection. But that's something we're going to have to really worry about if it deepens a little bit more rapidly during the next couple of days. It will be slowing down for sure. Now that is Bonnie. East of there, another strong disturbance. Could this become our next depression, maybe tropical storm within the next day or so? A good chance. And again, the islands could be affected by that. And off the coast of Africa, one wave after another. And once again, we're looking at some a very active time as opposed to just a week ago when not much was going on across the tropical Atlantic. Well, we're going to talk more about severe weather across the Midwest, more heavy rainfalls for Florida and southeastern Texas. Those stories coming up in just a moment.
All this atmospheric energy coming together.
Drama, passion, suspense, tropospheric undulations. Every night on Weather Center PM.
What is Nicorette? Nicotine replacement gum. It helps you stop smoking cigarettes, but you don't chew it like regular gum. You bite Nicorette until it tingles. Then you hold it between your cheek and your gum. And you get a lower level of nicotine to help you fight your cravings. And as your cravings get fewer and fewer, you use less and less and less Nicorette.
Coast winds gusting 30, 38 miles an hour, Corpus Christi towards the Palacios and Victoria, so windy and wet. Certainly not a good day. Do some traveling in through here. And there you can see our problems with the windy travel today. And looking at the lightning data, if you lightning center, we're watching two areas of tropical activity. First is Hurricane Bonnie, which is moving its way towards the Bahamas, will affect the Bahamas today. Then there's Tropical Storm Charley, which is very close to Corpus Christi, Texas. Its biggest threat will be heavy rain and flooding to parts of Texas. Bruce Edwards is in the Forecast Center with the latest on both. Bruce?
Thanks, Mark, and good morning, everyone. Indeed, as the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. We have not only one, but two systems to talk about. One is directly affecting the continental U.S. right now. The other, we'll have to wait and see. Potentially it could. Here are the two systems. Number one, we have Charley right here, a tropical storm moving on shore along the Texas coast. And we have Bonnie, which is a hurricane around the Turks Islands here. It is not an immediate threat to the U.S., but it's something, of course, we're keeping a very close watch on. Let's deal with Charley because that's of the most immediate concern. Charley is a tropical storm and is moving on shore just north of Corpus Christi, Texas. And you can see the circulation around the center working its way on shore at the present time. Here's the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. Tropical Storm Charley, as of the 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time update, was centered at 27.8 degrees north, 96.8 degrees west, or approximately 25 miles east-southeast of Port Aransas, Texas. It is a strong tropical storm with maximum sustained winds at 60 miles per hour. It is moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour, coming onshore. Estimated central pressure 29.62 inches or 1,003 millibars. Now, tropical storm warnings are posted from Sabine Pass, Texas to Brownsville, Texas, with, of course, Charley centered right over here and working on shore. Likely as it moves on shore and encounters, of course, the friction of land, it will weaken, and then we can expect these warnings to gradually be taken down by the Hurricane Center as the system moves on shore. But really the most serious thing with Charley will be the potential for flooding. Flash flood watches are posted across all of south central Texas for today. As so far, radar estimates have been up to around 3.5 inches of rain between Corpus Christi and Victoria, Texas. And rainfall amounts 4 to 8 inches, locally 5+ is what we're looking at here as it comes inland right in through south central Texas are indeed a possibility over the next 24 hours, perhaps as high as 8 inches of rain working on shore. The radar out of Brownsville, Texas shows the heaviest rain now north of Corpus Christi around Victoria, with the center of the tropical storm coming on shore at approximately this position. You can see the circulation working around in that counterclockwise fashion with the heavier bands of rain working on shore. Now around Refugio County, they're reporting severe thunderstorm warnings during the last hour. And again, some of the storms could be nasty with some gusty winds, especially along the coast. Now, Houston is located on the northern fringes. Galveston could catch some heavier rainfall. Bands working on shore, Galveston Island. And the forecast track for this system is anticipated to move pretty much in a due west-northwesterly track, which would take the center of the remnants of Charley south of San Antonio. But with the center located approximately here, most of the heavy precipitation has been to the north and northeast of the center, and that would bring some heavier rains into the San Antonio vicinity. Here's a look at the latest Doppler radar, and you can see once again with the center of the system approximately here moving on shore, the heavier rain bands once again wrapping around the center especially. That's where the rain is the heaviest. Now that is one system, the one immediately affecting the continental U.S., Tropical Storm Charley. But there is a second system we're watching, this one bigger, but so far no threat to the continental U.S. It is Hurricane Bonnie situated
here. We're in Port Aransas. We'll let you know what the results are. Stay tuned.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Will Annan. Welcome to Weather Center on this Saturday morning. We're watching two areas of tropical activity. First is Hurricane Bonnie, which is in the Atlantic moving towards the Bahamas. Then there's Tropical Storm Charley, which is now moving very slowly onshore north of Corpus Christi, Texas. Rick Griffins is now in the Forecast Center. He has the latest on both.
Thanks a lot, Will. All of a sudden, the tropics very active, and as you mentioned, we have two significant systems on this Saturday morning. One is Hurricane Bonnie, and the other one is Tropical Storm Charley, now making landfall along the Texas Gulf Coast. Let's take a look at the latest information on Charley. It's located this morning at 27.8 north and 96.8 west. That is about, at last report, 25 miles east-southeast of Port Aransas, Texas. But the storm is now probably just right on the coastline, basically. Top sustained winds at 60. So there was a little intensification just before landfall this morning. Northwest movement on Charley at 10, and the pressure 1,003 millibars. Just a reminder, you residents coastal Texas are urged to remain indoors this morning because of expected gusty winds and localized flooding. We've had reports of 4.5 inches of rain already in parts of Lavaca County. There's been coastal flooding at Jamaica Beach, and water was well over the pier, as well as some yards being inundated by high water. That coastal flooding just southwest of Galveston by about 15 miles. Tropical storm warnings this morning, Brownsville to Sabine Pass, and our colorized satellite picture shows Charley working inland. Our radar shows the heavy rain, Lavaca County, Bee County, Refugio County in south central Texas. All those counties under flash flood warnings right now due to rainfall in the 3 to 4 inch range per hour. Well, joining us on this Saturday morning is our hurricane expert, Dr. Lyons. Steve Lyons is here. We know Charley's moving inland and it's going to weaken. So what is the main threat going to be this morning?
Well, right now it looks like the winds are going to come down very quickly, at least near the ground. So the big threat now with the slow movement is the heavy precipitation, a lot of rain.
And there's a potential, as the case with landfalling tropical storms and hurricanes, of isolated tornadoes, too.
That's right. With severe weather, anywhere near a thunderstorm right at landfall, we could have an isolated tornado or two.
Okay. All right, Steve, and you'll be back to talk a little bit more about Hurricane Bonnie in just a second. Thank you. But right now, let's go live to Jim Cantore. He's in Port Aransas, Texas, very close to where Charley is making landfall this morning. Good morning to you, Jim.
Good morning, Rick. Looks like Charley actually has gone into our north. We've seen mostly a northwest wind since yesterday evening when we last talked to you at midnight. And sure enough, the results, at least around here from what I've walked around and surveyed, have not been much. And of course, that is definitely good news. And really, any point south along Padre Island should have had some type of west-northwest wind, which has kept the coastal flooding to a minimum, as well as any type of beach erosion that may occur. So that is good news. What we have heard this morning, I did call the emergency management officials. They talked about up in Aransas County, there's a tornado warning around 2 a.m. They had not heard of any type of damage there, and they're actually surprised it was remarkably quiet with only just a little bit of light rain here. But as we mentioned, it's really the north and east side of the storm that deals with all the action. Now, there could still be some heavy rain here, which would lead to some localized flooding, but as far as the beach problems and the coastal flooding, we're doing good here on Padre Island. Back to you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Jim. We'll check back with you at the top of the hour. Now to our second significant tropical feature, that is Hurricane Bonnie. Let's get the latest on Bonnie. It's located 22.1 north, 69.4 west. Top sustained winds on Bonnie.
Scenes from Port Aransas, Texas. Tropical Storm Charley's bearing down on parts of the Lone Star State right now. Good morning. Welcome to Weather Center. I'm Mark Mancuso. Well, the weather is kicking up in Texas with Tropical Storm Charley. And we also have Hurricane Bonnie bearing down on the Bahamas. We'll have more from Texas in a moment, but first, let's turn to Bruce Edwards in our Forecast Center. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning, everyone. And indeed, we have lots of action going on in the tropics after a very, very quiet start to the season. Here's a satellite picture that shows us Tropical Storm Danny. Now, Danny is of most immediate concern to the continental U.S. because it is moving onshore. The 4 a.m. update had Danny centered at 27.8 degrees north and 96.8 degrees west, or 25 miles east-southeast of Port Aransas, Texas. Tropical storm Charley moving to the northwest at 10. Central pressure estimated at 10,1003 millibars. But again, this was several hours ago, and Charley continues to move towards the coastal region and onshore right now. We still have those tropical storm warnings out from Sabine Pass down to Brownsville, Texas. These likely will be again trimmed as Charley comes onshore. Situated down along the Texas coast to the south of Charley, the Weather Channel's Jim Cantori in Port Aransas, Texas. Jim, how are things on this Saturday morning with Charley hitting the coast?
Hey, Bruce, we're not faring too bad here. There are some pretty decent breakers out there that you can see behind me here as we look at the pier. We're actually at Port Aransas Park, and the folks out surfing last night, they're here once again, ready to catch some waves. And this is, good news for them because they really haven't had much of a summer with waves. But what we've seen this morning at the time of high tide is some of the water which has come up on the road. By the way, this is only one of 2 beaches that you can drive on the East Coast, the other being Daytona Beach. And cars are making their way in some spots, but I do see some spots where water is still left standing on the road. So the water got up a ways, and that's definitely not allowing folks to get out this morning and just drive along the beaches as they were last night. But all in all, from what we've heard from emergency management, they were amazed at how remarkably quiet it was here. But up the road, it was a little bit worse. There was some coastal flooding, and that would seem true given the fact that the onshore flow has definitely brought in the water, and at the time of high tide this morning, it would have kept the water up as well. But with that, the heavy rain showers, a report of about 4.5 inches of rain in northern Aransas County, so they've definitely seen some heavier rain up that way, and even a couple of tornado warnings last night in which we've heard there were no damage. So all in all, we're not doing too bad, but as we hear from what's happened upstate, we will definitely pass it back to you. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much. Reporting live from Port Aransas, Texas, Jim Cantori. And I'll tell you, the forecast it does not bode well north of where Jim is. We're looking at a rainfall forecast could be exceeding 5 inches or greater, 5 to 8 inches or so, with flood warnings out for B County, western Refugio County, and Lavaca County in Texas for the heavy rains. And the radar out of Brownsville showing, once again, the extremely heavy rain pushing on shore. We've had some rainfall reports of well over 4 inches of rain along parts of the upper Texas coast as this system continues to move in. Doppler radar estimates of 11 inches of rain in western Refugio County as this system continues to churn on shore. And that's really going to be the biggest threat, the flooding and the rain. Now, the second system is not an immediate threat to the continental U.S., but it is a growing hurricane. Hurricane Bonnie, situated in the tropical Atlantic. And as of the 8 a.m. update, Bonnie centered at 22.4 north, 70 degrees west, or approximately 120 miles east-northeast of Turk Island. The maximum sustained winds have now increased to 80 miles per hour. It continues its west-northwesterly track at 17 miles an hour. It's expected to slow down a bit over the next 24 hours.
And this edition of Storm Watch brought to you by Home Depot. Tropics very active, and let's take a look at the activity. Starting first with the big picture for you, and we take a look from the Gulf of Mexico out across the Atlantic. We see Tropical Storm Charley making a move into the Texas coast. We see Hurricane Bonnie bearing down on the Bahamas. Next disturbed weather looking rather ominous, about 600 miles east of the Windward Islands. And behind that, yet another powerful tropical wave near the Cape Verde Islands. So we're getting deep into August and deeper into an active time in the tropical season. Here's the very latest on Tropical Storm Charley. It has moved inland, and with it moving inland now, winds are now down to 40 miles an hour sustained, but there are still some higher gusts, and especially in the rain bands swirling about Charley. And Charley, moving northwest, will start to turn more westerly during the day today, and it will continue to weaken as it moves through the hill country. But the main effects out of this now will be the very heavy rains. If you are plotting, 28.2 north, 97.5 west. We still have tropical storm warnings along the coast from Brownsville to the Sabine Pass. At the time of landfall here, we have had reports of tides running 1 to 3 feet above average here, just to the north of where the storm did make landfall, right around Port Aransas. And there was some coastal flooding, but with the flow offshore around South Padre Island, no major flooding problems here. But with this storm moving in, this tropical storm, we have been seeing bands of rain push copious amounts of moisture into southeast Texas. And right to the north of the center of circulation here, we have had Doppler radar estimates of 11 inches of rain in western Refugio and in southeastern B counties, right in through here. So obviously flooding a problem north of Corpus Christi. South of Corpus, not much. The flow is offshore, but where the flow is onshore, places like Galveston and Houston, you are in for rainy and windy weather, squally weather, and this is moving westward right into San Antonio, so a rather nasty Saturday morning. But the good news is heavy rain will help to replenish some of the groundwater supplies, but bad news is in the short term there'll be some flooding problems and of course a lot of travel problems. Now, and one last thing, all the coastal warnings will be dropped at 10 a.m. local time. Now let's get you to Bonnie. This is becoming more of a problem. Look at this, winds now 80 miles an hour. Center of circulation about 120 miles east-northeast of Turk Island. Pressure down to 980 millibars, 22.4 north, 70.0 west. Hurricane hunters have been investigating this throughout the